وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا وَكَذَّبُوا بِآيَاتِنَا. And those who disbelieved and lied against our miraculous signs, our revelations, أُولَٰئِكَ أَصْحَابُ النَّارِ. Those are the people of fire. خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا. They will remain in them forever. وَبِئْسَ الْمَصِيرِ. And what a horrible place to be that is. Or a horrible place of return also that is. Now the fruits of Iman I was referring to. مَا أَصَابَ مِن مُصِيبَةٍ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. Not a single calamity of any form, any shape or form, falls upon anybody except, there's no such thing as any calamity falling except by Allah's permission. Asaba, as I mentioned before, is targeting. Targeting. Asaba is used when you shoot an arrow to the right target. So Allah is talking about calamities that are specifically targeted for you. There's no such thing as, why did this happen to me? If I just slowed down a little bit, I wouldn't have been in the accident. Or if I left a minute later, I would have missed this whole thing. There's always a what if. There is no what if. It was supposed to happen this way. It was targeted at you. Ma asaba min musibatin. Good or bad, by the way. In musibah, in Urdu, we took the word musibat and it's always bad. Kya musibat hai? Right? Musibah is always bad. But in Arabic, musibah can be good or bad. Anything that hits you. Anything that strikes you. Illa bi-idhnillah. Except, it doesn't happen except if Allah wants it to happen. Allah, by Allah's permission, Allah is granting it permission for it to happen. وَمَن يُؤْمِن بِاللَّهِ. And whoever could believe in Allah, meaning whoever would believe in Allah through a calamity, through whatever happens, they don't lose their faith. What is Allah telling us? When calamity strikes, that's when most people lose their faith. Allah is telling us when problems happen, that's when people lose their iman. Why would Allah do this to me? Why would other humanity suffer from this problem or that problem? The problem of human suffering is the number one argument for people who disbelieve in God. In philosophy and in personal life. In philosophy, they use it and say, if God was so great, how come there's cancer? How come there's cockroaches? How come there's this or that or the other? Right? How can that be if there's a merciful God? And in the personal life, if God is so great, how come He let this happen in my life, and that happen in my life, and that happen in my life? Where was He when I needed Him? Allah says, if you can survive calamity with faith, وَمَن يُؤْمِن بِاللَّهِ, whoever can maintain their faith in Allah through a calamity, يَهْدِي قَلْبَهُ, Allah guides his heart. The greatest treasure that a human being will ever enjoy on the face of this earth will be guidance from Allah. And Allah says, I'm guaranteeing it. Allah Himself taking responsibility for guiding what is the most fluctuating entity inside the human being, the heart. Allah will guide not just him, He'll guide his heart if that person can maintain faith during a calamity. That's the gift of Allah to this person. Guidance of the heart. This is one of the greatest gifts mentioned in the Quran. وَمَن يُؤْمِن بِاللَّهِ يَهْدِي قَلْبَهُ وَاللَّهُ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمٌ. And yes, cry your woes to Allah. Allah knows everything that you went through. Allah is fully knowledgeable of all things. In other words, it's not like Allah is oblivious to your pain. He doesn't know the suffering you had. Some of the most powerful surahs about this ayah alone, this ayah, if you want to know a tafsir of this ayah, read Surah Yusuf. The surah is full of suffering. Father losing a son, a boy being kidnapped, a boy being sold as a slave, a young man being falsely accused, and his innocence proven, and despite that ending up in jail for years and years and years. Suffering, 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 and at every moment of that suffering, you have the right to ask, what did he ever do to deserve that? What did he ever do to deserve being kidnapped? Why would he be sold as a slave? Why would he be falsely accused? What was his crime ending up in jail for so many years? And what did that such a good father, why did he ever, and how come these guys never paid for their crime? So many years. There's so many, oh my God, how could that happen? How could anybody let that happen? And some people who lose faith, what kind of God would let this happen? Right? That's ma asaba min musibatin illa bi-idhnillah. That's why that surah is so important. One of the meanings of Yusuf, some argue it's Yusuf. Yusuf, it's from asaf. Sorrow. Overwhelmed by sorrow. Because his life has so much sadness in it. So many sad occasions. SubhanAllah. How depressing would it be to spend years in a dark dungeon, a prison? We just read those ayat, they're quick ayat. That doesn't mean those years were quick. Yusjana hatta heen. He should be in prison until a while. You just move on. What? That while? Long while. SubhanAllah. But Allah says, and that story is important, and I tell you that's the tafsir of this ayah. Why? Because they maintained their faith. Yusuf maintained his faith and didn't lose his faith. Yaqub alayhi salam maintained his faith and didn't lose his faith. And Allah guided their hearts. Yahdi qalbahu. Wallahu bi kulli shay'in alim. And while you're going through calamity and your iman is to be maintained, how do you maintain iman during calamity? وَأَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَأَطِيعُوا الرَّسُولِ. Obey Allah and obey the Messenger. Increase your ibadah during worship, tough times. Obey Allah even more. When calamity strikes you, you and I should think, how am I disobeying Allah? If this is happening, maybe Allah is giving me an opportunity to guide my heart by obeying Him again. I should get my act together. This wouldn't have happened if I wasn't disobeying Allah. Obey Allah and His Messenger, and obey the Messenger. فَإِن تَوَلَّيْتُمْ. And if you turn back, فَإِنَّمَا عَلَى رَسُولِنَا الْبَلَاغُ الْمُبِينَ. Then the only obligation on our Messenger is clearly communicating the message. We oversimplify the struggles of the Sahaba so much. Sahaba that were given shahada on the battlefield. They went straight to Jannah. Wonderful. Did they leave family behind? Did they leave kids behind? Did the wife hear the news of the husband being gone forever? Did the mother receive news of her son no longer being there? And as happy as they are that they're headed to Jannah, is there not a sadness that they're not going to see them anymore? Until they go, if they make it to Jannah? Isn't there a sadness? Isn't that something very hard to deal with? The death of a son, the death of a husband, the caretaker of a household? How much calamity they have to suffer? And even look at these ayat, there's not just calamity when you sin. Like people are sinning and Allah gives them a hard time and then they get their act together. These Sahaba were doing wonderful things and they were hit with calamity. So you can't say, I'm a good person. Why is Allah giving me a hard time? I don't do anything bad. How come Allah punishes me like this? Not a punishment. There's among the people, فَإِذَا أُذِيَ فِي اللَّهِ جَعَلَ فِتْنَةَ النَّاسِ كَعَذَابِ اللَّهِ. Among the people, there's somebody who when he's tortured or hurt, caused pain, he assumes the pain people are causing him is a torture from Allah, is punishment from Allah, divine decree. That's not the case. These tests will come to those who do good and those who do bad. But to those, the opportunity is being offered, this is the time to guarantee your guidance. وَأَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَأَطِيعُوا الرَّسُولَ. فَإِن تَوَلَّيْتُمْ. Then if you were to turn back, فَإِنَّمَا عَلَى رَسُولِنَا الْبَلَاغُ الْمُبِينَ. Then the only responsibility on our messenger is clearly communicating the message. Allahu la ilaha illahu. Allah, there is no one to worship or obey in any way, shape or form except He. وَعَلَى اللَّهِ فَلْيَتَوَكَّلِ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. Then upon Allah alone, believers, true believers should rely, they should place their trust. They should just completely have confidence in Allah's decree, Allah's plan. And in story night I talk about how we have plans. And Allah, we want to get somewhere. I want to have a career that I enjoy. And I have my own plan. I'm going to go to school, I'm going to go do these interviews, I'm going to do this and that, and that's going to get me to my career. But Allah has His own plan. He's going to get you fired the first week, and then you're going to start looking for somewhere, and you're not going to find a job, and you're going to move to another state, and this is going to happen, and that's going to happen, and eventually, you're going to end up doing something that you never expected, and you're happier than you ever were in your life. You had your own plans, but Allah just has His own plans. The mother of Musa alayhi salam has a plan to save her child. She wants to hide the kid. Allah has His own plan, throw him in the river. Who would agree with that plan? Throw the baby in the river. There's a plan. And then Allah puts a feeling in her heart, don't worry, He'll come back to you. Or if she went over to her neighbor's house after she put the baby in the river, where's the baby? I don't see Musa, cute little Musa. Where is he? Oh no, I had a feeling that Allah wants me to throw him in the river. But don't worry, he's coming back to me. Allah guaranteed he's coming back. Everybody else would think you're insane. You lost your mind. Hours later, she's reunited with her child. Hours later, she's with her child again. Well, Allah says, وَلِتَعْلَمَ أَنَّ وَعْدَ اللَّهِ الْحَقِّ وَعْدَ اللَّهِ حَقِّ. So she could know for herself Allah's promise is true. See, she has a plan. She wants to save her child. She wants to put the child to sleep, hide him under a blanket, whatever her plan is. But Allah has a much better plan. And you cannot foresee her putting the child in the river that this is a good idea. I don't see how this is going to work out, really. You know? And Allah, you know what's really, I don't want to talk to you about that story too much, because that's story night, but just a little bit. You know Allah said, وَجَاعِلُهُ مِنَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. We're going to make him from those that are delivered. One of the meaning of delivered, the meanings of mursaleen is delivered. Where was he going to get delivered? Where was Musa going to get delivered? Pharaoh's palace. Allah didn't tell the mother he's going to get delivered to Pharaoh's palace. He just said he's going to get delivered. Because if he mentioned recipient address, Allah just told her, لا تخافي ولا تحزني. Don't be afraid, don't worry about it. I'll bring him back to you and I'll get him delivered. But if the statement began, don't worry and don't be scared, I'll get him delivered to Pharaoh's castle, then the fear and the grief will not go away. So Allah kept her on a need-to-know basis. The plan's there, just know he'll get delivered, okay? That's it. وَجَعِلُهُ مِنَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. It's incredible. Allah has His own plan, and Allah says no one is to be worshipped and obeyed except He. وَعَلَى اللَّهِ فَلْيَتَوَكَّلِ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. I say the ayah should be understood. If you are a believer in La ilaha illallah, then how do you not have reliance in Allah? When people who believe in La ilaha illallah, how do they not have trust in Allah? وَعَلَى اللَّهِ فَلْيَتَوَكَّلِ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. Sahaba did not see an end in sight. They did not see an end to their problems. Ahzab could have been the end of the seerah. Badr could have been the end of the seerah. Makkah could have been the end of the seerah. The hijrah could have been the end of the seerah. There are so many vulnerabilities in the seerah that one move here and there and there and there, and it's the end of it. It's done. Surah Lahab could have been the end of the seerah. When Surah Lahab cursed Abu Lahab could have turned around and said, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. But Quran says, I'm burning in hell. I guess it didn't predict that one, did it? He could have invalidated the Quran just by accepting Islam, even for pretend. Didn't do it. Allah called it. You can't do that. SubhanAllah. There's so many vulnerabilities. And the only thing moving it forward is tawakkul in Allah. That's it. That's it. That is the fruit of Iman. The real fruit of Iman is somebody learns to rely on Allah in all circumstances.